The who's who of state and local politics, industry and business joined a crowd of more than 300 to witness the opening. With a $700 million new potline, Tomago is now the largest aluminium smelter in Australia and one of the biggest in the world. Former Premier and one of the initiators of the expansion, Nick Greiner, met an old foe, but it was the Premier, John Fahey, who highlighted the moment.
This is clearly a milestone event for the Tomago joint venturers, for the state and national economies, and for the people of Newcastle and the Hunter Valley.
The new potline increases production by 50%, pushing export earnings to around $800 million. World aluminium prices are down, but the company says this is a long-term project. The new facility was finished months under schedule and with less than 1% of days lost due to industrial action. The company and Labor leaders praised the unions for their commitment.
It is just tremendous news to hear, not that we're catching up with the rest of the world, but we're exceeding the rest of the world. We're leading the way.
As the steel industry tightens job prospects, the aluminium industry is opening new doors. Employment has been boosted by 20% with the third potline to 1,200 workers. That has a flow-on effect of a further 1,200 jobs created in the Hunter and associated industries and an extra 3,600 positions across the state. Meanwhile, Premier Fahey has hinted ports in New South Wales could face privatisation in the near future.
We will see a development in the Port Authority and its independence as the year progresses.
This follows a report which stated private enterprise would be more efficient at operating the state's ports. Mr Fahey says such a move in centres like Newcastle, Sydney and Port Kembla would bring charges down. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
There's been some interesting moves over the summer break. Former Knights stalwart Sam Stewart has signed up with Central Charlestown, and Human Dynamo's Steve Fulmer has also parted company with the Knights to take up the coaching reins at Cessnock. Fulmer has done some pretty smart rebuilding over the break and brought back some players who left the area and now want to learn some big league tactics.
Oh, there's probably a few, but I won't let any secrets out. At the moment, I'm just concentrating on having a look at the guys playing. I won't be playing tonight. Probably for the next couple of weeks I'll have a look at them from the sideline, and then for the first competition game or maybe the last trial against Lakes I will play, but it's a lot better sitting on the sideline and having a look at them first.
Fulmer says for the first time in years the local competition will be pretty even.
Oh well, I think the Lakes and West are still there again, the grand finalists from last year. I think South will be very strong this year, and I think Steve Linane out at Curry will do a lot for the side too.
Most clubs will be out to flex their new look sides tonight. The teams on the left-hand side of the screen have the home game. First grade starts at 8 o'clock.
It's believed the attack happened sometime between late Saturday afternoon and early Sunday morning at this Wallsend property. When owner Paul Wintle went to feed his mare Kiss a Winner early yesterday, he noticed she was distressed. Blood was found on the railings, the full realisation of the savage attack made after a vet's examination.
He came out, we put her under a local anaesthetic. He did an internal inspection, and on doing that he pulled splinters of wood and splinters of dirt from out of the inside of her vagina.
The mare had just been separated from her second colt. Because of her size, Paul believes more than one person was responsible.
She's a big, strong mare. She's a quiet mare. But I do feel, through experience, that there would have to have been at least 3 people, because they've got to push her head up into a corner, 2 people hold her up there, and one's got to be doing the work.
For protection, the horse has been moved. She's on antibiotics twice a day and is being kept under close observation by the RSPCA and her owner. With 35 years' experience in the horse industry, Paul Wintle says it's the worst case of deliberate cruelty he's ever seen.
If there's any good thing to come out of it, we're just glad that the timber was so large, because had the piece of timber been smaller, they could have gone further inside. and done more damage. She'd have probably hemorrhaged and died.
The RSPCA is asking for help in its investigations. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
For most voters, the federal election will be dismissed with a flick of the pen in the polling booths tomorrow. But for Australian Electoral Commission staff, Election 93 has meant weeks of work. At the Commission's office in Newcastle, there's been a steady stream of pre-poll voters.
We've actually issued 1,300 pre-poll votes so far, up until last night. It's the most that we've ever issued prior to an election.
The bulk of the work begins early tomorrow morning. In the 4 electorates in the Hunter, about 1,700 staff will erect and man more than 250 booths before they open at 8 a.m. Mr Jones says those voters not in their local area tomorrow can still have their say.
All they have to do is go along to any polling place in New South Wales, give their name and address on the roll, and the people there will give them an absentee vote.
With less than 24 hours to go until election day, many voters say they're still undecided as to which way they'll vote.
I'm just undecided, so it's too complicated.
Excuse me, have you decided which way you're going to vote?
No idea. Wait till I get in there and see what grabs me at the time. Thanks.
Once the polls close at 6 p.m, votes will be sent from each of the 8,500 booths Australia-wide to a central tally room in Canberra. Then the counting begins, and for the candidates, so does the waiting. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Hello and welcome back to Newcastle's Charlestown Square. As you've just seen, we've just had a fantastic performance by one of the Hunter's premier and one of the world's premier school bands, the Marching Koalas, doing their bit for Telethon. Here's Jody with more information on the Money Brick Wall, Money Brick House.
Yeah, it's a house peak because as you can see we've got a window now. It's grown considerably since you saw it last time. And joining me is Paul Scott from the Newcastle Permanent Building Society. And Paul, how many bricks has the Building Society given out and how much money have we raised?
Well, Jody, we've produced 5,000 bricks altogether, distributed those out through the shops, the schools. We've already got some thousands back here. There's also been bricks coming into the station, you were telling me too, so that money. We've got about $7,000 already here now. We're going to be counting this afternoon once the actual branch closes. We're out here also selling Art Union tickets, so come on down to Charlestown Square for the afternoon.
It's all happening here, isn't it?
My word, it certainly is.
And as Paul said, we've got staff from the Newcastle Permanent Building Society waiting to take your money and waiting to take your bricks. Now it's back to Pete with even more that's happening out here.
Oh look, this place is just oozing with celebrities. Over here, where is he? Rowdy the Rabbit. Big celebrity around here, and a very famous dog that we have seen earlier on Telethon, and a very famous friend, Miss Kim.
Hi Peter, we're surrounded at the moment. Hi everyone, how's it going back at the studio?
Oh, fantastic. Everyone's kicking in like they should be, but we want more, don't we?
We sure do. Actually, I'm looking at the brick wall. It's got to go right up to that palm tree, hasn't it?
We want to get it as high as we can, yes. And tell me, what's happening down at Charlestown Square this afternoon?
Well, we're just here again at about another hour's time. Big Dog's going to be here and talk to all the children and hopefully to collect lots of money from our Money Brick Walls. So we'll be here for a little while and then back to the studio again about 4 o'clock for the big finale when all the money's coming in.
Okay, so thank you, Kim. So the work keeps going on. People keep bringing in the money for Telethon. Back to everyone in the studio.
The early morning rain cleared, and with it evaporated any chance of Nat being able to legitimately back out of his first skydiving jump.
You're going to be above the clouds and 12,000 feet up. Do you think are you nervous about it?
I'm absolutely horrified at this stage. I mean, I've never done it before. I have no idea what it's going to be like.
But before the trip could get underway, a few formalities. A signature to say he wouldn't sue if he didn't land in one piece, and a kiss as though it was his last from wife Sandra.
I don't know why I'm doing this. The things I do for telethon, I just hope that it raises a lot of money.
The plane climbed to 12,000 feet, giving Nat a very different perspective on the weather. After a moment's hesitation, he agreed there was only one way down.
This is it. This is crunch time.
As it was his first, Nat jumped in tandem with his instructor.
It's not a good idea to look down. I found it better just to look around, especially in free fall, because there were other people there. I wanted to see what was going on. And then we sort of opened up a little bit earlier because of the extra weight we had. And it took us a while to come down through the cloud, which was a bit weird because you just don't know where you are. Fortunately, Peter knows his way around and he managed to bring us into the right place.
Minutes later, they emerged through the clouds.
Sorry about the unceremonious landing.
Mate, it was a good one. Is that my fault?
No,
So how was it?
That was unreal. Thanks, Pete. That was a buzz.
What was it like?
Which part?
What was going through your mind when you had to jump out of the plane?
I don't want to do this. Why am I here? And actually, probably about the first 2 or 3 seconds after you leave the aircraft, pretty horrifying. And then it just settled down because there doesn't really appear to be any movement after that. And my ears haven't popped yet.
Five physically disabled teenagers proved too good for the Gosford City Council Mayor and 4 of his aldermen. The innovative game was played at a frenetic pace, and by half-time the students had steamrolled to a 12-point lead, sending the local pollies reeling back in their wheelchairs. Mayor Robert Bell and his teammates made a comeback in the second half, but couldn't match the skill of the students. Wheelchair football is an adaptation of rugby league, although no ball is actually used. Kendall High School player 16-year-old Adam White, who has muscular dystrophy, will represent the New South Wales electric wheelchair squad when it contests the national titles in Adelaide in April. The school prides itself on integrating physically and intellectually disabled youngsters into the community. There are 34 disabled students who enjoy mixing with the other students at the school and playing wheelchair footy at recess and lunch in the school hall. The students will get another chance to silence the pollies next year, as the Mayor has asked for a rematch.
The operation of backyard spirit distilleries may provide a welcome drop for some, but for the Australian Customs Service, it's the cause of one big headache.
You are breaking the law by not having a licence, you are evading excise duty. There's also a health hazard in the sense that there could be problems with explosion or fire.
With this cocktail of problems associated with illegal stills, customs officers have launched a crackdown in northern New South Wales, from Wyong in the south to Port Macquarie in the north and inland to Tamworth. At this stage, they're not sure how many stills there could be in the area.
My counterparts have had success in Kembla of 13 in 1992, and in ACT Fish Week they had a success of 12. I'd like to think that we'd get the same numbers in this vicinity.
Last year alone, 14,000 litres of illegally distilled spirit was seized in New South Wales. That represents almost $500,000 in lost excise duty. And according to the Australian Hotels Association, it also means lost revenue for legitimate publicans.
All the alcohol that comes into hotels has excise paid on it and has licence tax and all the other associated government charges. And if they're selling alcohol over the back fence sort of thing, they're cutting into our profits.
In the past 6 months alone, almost 200 jobs have been lost from state mines on the Central Coast. To ward off more job losses, the Miners' Union has been negotiating with Pacific Power this week, looking at the future of the organisation's collieries once contracts run out in 1996. Pacific Power wants productivity to be boosted by more than 40% to 7,000 tonnes per man annually in 3 years' time. But under present conditions, that increased productivity could mean job losses of up to 500.
If you run those figures into fixed contract mines, that certainly indicates that there is an excess of employees within the Orcom group of mines.
500 as stated?
Well, the figures haven't been, if you like, put up by Pacific Power or us.
To prevent jobs being lost, Pacific Power will search for export markets.
And obviously that would enable any excess production to be taken up and therefore, if you like, address the excess numbers of employees.
Both Peter Murray and a Pacific Power spokesman say this week's negotiations have been about workplace reform and not retrenchments.
If a natural attrition position takes place over a period of time up to 96 and they do achieve those numbers, that's quite acceptable to us. But we certainly wouldn't be and won't be sitting at a table and negotiating, which is an immediate retrenchment of our members.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The school in Bingaro is undergoing some of the biggest changes in its 131-year history. The 300 students have outgrown the school. To help cater for these students, the school's makeshift demountables are being replaced by permanent buildings.
Late last year, a new secondary block was built, and that's now occupied. The part of the school that's been vacated as a result of that is being totally refurbished, and the infants primary children will be moving up there when that's completed around about the middle of the year.
After this work, the original buildings will be refurbished and converted into a technology and design centre. The school will also strengthen its position as a centre of excellence in music with improvements to the band room.
One of these rooms has been preserved and has been upgraded as the band room. The department asked us to make sure it fitted in with the amenity of the school, and that's been done at the moment. We've spent about $5,000 on renovating and a new roof.
The additions to the school and the improvements to the old buildings will also help the community's push for years 11 and 12 at the school.
The fact that the school had been refurbished and had been considerably upgraded, particularly in the technology and design area, would be of great assistance in establishing year 11-12 here.
About 50 delegates from the northwest met at Bingara Sporting Club to establish a base for an agricultural college in the region.
There have been some ideas put on the table, not yet finally resolved, that will probably help us to resolve some of those differences and to get these people working better together.
From the talks, a firm plan was announced to establish the agricultural college. After 9 years of lobbying, Inverell will be the headquarters for the facility. The administration will be in the town, along with a course for sheep and livestock management. Narrabri will run classes on irrigation and cotton, and Moree will be the centre for the broadacre crop course with an emphasis on wheat and sorghum. The delegates' decision ends years of debating about where a Northwest Agricultural College should be. The problem now is how to get the money to build the college and its offshoots. Deputy Premier and member for Barwon Wal-Murray wanted the college established at Inverell, and it isn't clear whether the state government will spread the funds to the 3 towns.
This was Russell Cheek's 8th game of Sale of the Century, and he was going for the lot, a total of $313,000, including 2 cars, 2 holidays, jewellery and furniture. By the time fast money came along, Russell was on a winner. And yes, he's an actor, a prominent face in Newcastle in the early 80s. Russell grew up in Hamilton South, attending Newcastle Boys High School. He left for Sydney University when he was 17, but returned in 1983 to join the zany Castanet Club. He's seen here in 1984 when the group was raising money to go to Edinburgh. Russell also directed a number of Freewheels productions. His taste for quiz shows began early. In 1968, Russell won the NBN BHP High School Quiz. Russell now lives in Bondi and says he's looking forward to driving a car which is rust-free.
Chrissy Oliver is America's #1 female super sedan driver, and she intends to take home a heap of trophies from her Australian tour. Last time she was in Newcastle, all she went home with was a set of deep bruises. Chrissy says the accident taught her a few lessons about the motordrome.
Newcastle is a tricky track, and if you can run around the outside, then you got it made.
Earlier this week, she was barred from a race in Victoria for allegedly bumping into another car deliberately.
You got to hold your line and you got to stay where you're at, and a lot of times you can't do that without pushing back.
It really gets the blood pumping. It's a good feeling. I think it's better than sex.
One man who intends to shut the American out and bring home the dough is Newcastle baker Don McEwen. McEwen has come back to racing after a short layoff and is level pegging for the lead in the sedan series.
I got a bit bored and Steve Smith, my mate, is the engine builder, and I said he'd do a motor for me and everything, and away I went.
He says he's developed a healthy respect for the American after watching her race.
She's an aggressive driver, and there is a place in Speedway for women drivers, and it's certainly been proven by her.
Tomorrow night's racing gets underway at 7 o'clock. Over the past few months, members of the Waratah Rugby Club have been out in the schools teaching boys and girls a version of rugby that doesn't involve tackling or collapsing scrums. Today, 350 kids, making up 30 teams, gathered for a full day of competition. Nearly every team was mixed, the girls often leaving their male teammates flat-footed.
They're playing better than some of the boys, you know, they run the ball a lot quicker and they're zippier around the field. It's unbelievable what the girls can do on the field.
However, there were plenty of potential Wallaby candidates and others who mimicked the style of current champions, like Campese. But the emphasis for the day was on getting kids of all shapes and sizes to have a go. The inaugural Encouragement Award went to St Columba School from Adamstown. The carnival was such a success, it will now become a regular event. The Knights were back out on the paddock this afternoon, most of them stretching out after a frustrating week. The build-up to the start of the competition proper gave the Knights every indication they were going to steamroll the opposition. Part of last week's letdown was John Schuster's missed goals. Trying hard to get it right at training tonight, Schuster looked like he put too much in and hurt himself. He will be examined by the club doctor later tonight to find the extent of the injury. Newcomer Jamie Ainscoe was at training early, determined to prove he's got what it takes to stay in first grade. Following Brad Godden's knock last week, he's been stood down, and Robbie O'Davis moves to fullback and appears to be quite relaxed about the move. The only surprise in the West lineup is Paul Langmack being dropped to reserves. The game will be played at Marathon Stadium and a big crowd is expected.
For more than half a century, Arthur Boyd has captured on canvas the changing face of Australia. Now at 73, the nation's most famous living artist is considered to be not so much a recordist of Australia's character, but a part of it. The works on show at Newcastle's Von Berto galleries range from depictions of his beloved Shoalhaven River to vibrant scenes from mythology.
I think it's just an ongoing thing of not necessarily doing the one subject all the time, which a lot of people do, and they're marvellous at it, but it's somehow it wouldn't come to me naturally. I mean, I'd feel that if I didn't change, I think it'd gradually, it'd get a bit stale. It might have already gone that way, I don't know.
Captains from both Merewether and Charlestown decided to give ground staff an extra day to try and dry out the pitch. The grand final will start at the No. 1 Sports Ground at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And last night, Merewether opening bat Tim Griffiths was handed a $50 fine and reprimand by the judiciary after pleading guilty to swearing at an umpire.
Only metres away from golfers, the Hunter Water Corporation's Bruce Peterson was engaged in something far less relaxed today, taking samples of blue-green algae. The toxic growth was detected yesterday in Anvil Creek, which meanders through farmland in the township of Branxton. Levels of 25,000 cells per millilitre have been recorded in the creek. That's almost double the safe limit, prompting Hunter Water to hastily erect these signs. Now the source of the outbreak is being traced.
What we need to look at are the farms that are contributing to nutrients into this creek, probably the local golf course, urban runoff and also our wastewater treatment works.
At Hunter Water's Branxton Sewerage Treatment Works, what appeared to be blue-green algae was evident in the dams that sometimes overflow into Anvil Creek. Hunter Water has had to contend with a spate of blue-green algae scares in recent weeks, with outbreaks near their Cessnock and Edgeworth works. In fact, the levels recorded in Black Creek near Cessnock were almost 15 times above that considered the safe limit.
The blue-green algae outbreak is not as bad as it has been in other creek systems, but it's still significant enough to issue a warning.
What is the nature of that warning?
The warning is for people to keep their cattle and other livestock out of the creek and not to swim in the creek.
Hunter Water hopes the outbreak will clear within a week. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The racing is split over 2 days. The first was held yesterday. The feature event, the Gyra Cup, ran over 1,400 metres. First home, number 9 Margin, followed by Steam Friend and Orange Kid third. Tomorrow serves to be just as exciting with the running of the Armidale Cup, and the track is looking good.
When he moved the rail back into its original position last weekend, so it's only had the one run on it yesterday, the Gyra Cup, and whilst it's a little bit dry, it is in very good condition.
John's tip for the Cup is Walker Horse Octane. Gary Harley prefers Newcastle 3-year-old number 15 Rockahula.
The visiting Kiwis are from the town of Curo on the South Island and for the past 10 years have been holding inter-club meets with Narrabri. Minutes into the game and the Blue Boars did away with the Trans-Tasman niceties and gave the Kiwis a big country welcome. From there the tries started flowing. The Dangar Park crowd were treated to a great display of rugby, the locals running out eventual winners 19-7. Club officials couldn't be happier with the win, considering the Kiwi team's previous form.
Surprisingly, they beat Quirindi. Quirindi were last year's premiers, and they beat them, I think, 24-15.
And in Rugby League, West Tamworth in the maroon and white played Moree at Scully Park last night. The game was played at a bustling pace, but some players had trouble remembering how far 5 metres is. West Tamworth picked up their game in the second half and ran out winners.
The first report police received was last Sunday. Since then, the con man has struck 4 times that they know of. The man has been operating in Hamilton South, Broadmeadow and Adamstown. According to police, he targets mainly older people living on their own. He spins a variety of stories to gain the homeowner's confidence.
He's approaching the elderly victims, conning his way inside the house, getting a layout and either taking money at the time or returning later to take the money.
In most cases, it's the shopping money or spare cash for paying bills which he takes. Police are warning all homeowners, particularly the elderly.
Be very careful, anyone who's approaching you at home, yes, wanting to get inside the house particularly.
The man is aged in his 20s, 175 to 180 centimetres tall, with reddish-brown collar-length hair. He's described as being overweight, and according to police, he sometimes wears a baseball cap.
Settlement City this Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. There's cooking demonstrations, tasting